Excerpt that I showed you actually comes from a book, and I'll source that book to you and to everybody else that listens to this in the future. And in this book, that's exactly what it's attempting to bring as a claim, that the reason why order is necessary or needs to be even instilled on the most smallest levels, which are to be organized by men, is because when observation into nature is already showing that it is completely organized, that every single thing is indeed, even for the things that is acting like or you think and don't want to be organized, they somehow fit all into the order too. And again, so the book is a notion that, hey, since nature is organized, we can be the organizer of all humanity, and that's why we need to be in control. And that's their perspective, because they say a man not controlled, it's gonna fuck it all up. That's their perspective, and this is what that's the root of what they stand on. That they basically are doing better for the world, because if there was no governance, the world would be in the dark ages. And I would if that was the case, let me show you. Like, if that was the case, we wouldn't have been this far anyway, because you can't get intelligence from being stupid. Basically, you can't, what I mean? You would destroy it all already before it ever became whatever you was talking about. So that makes no logical sense, is what I'm saying. So I just believe, again, there's a lot of uncomfortable truths here, and that's what I was mentioning tonight. I'm sure that it only takes about roughly 200 years max to completely rewrite everything, and nobody will be knowing what happened on the planet in that span of time, to be honest. Like, in 200 years, especially if the person incarnated is not aware of that they was here before, they can load a whole new program in that turn, and you come into a world and be imagining that the world has to really do with the stuff being displayed to you. And it's like, really what's being displayed is almost like a movie set. You know what I mean? Like and the things playing on the person is more of just in alignment with a higher power. And that's why I was saying it is really imperative that the person actually level up to their higher self, like it just go there. Because it looks like to me that this is a part of the whole game, if you may, is that there's multiple entities that will try to keep replacing. Because I also noticed this as I came into more of an awareness of my totality and self, that there was always, the mind even was always trying to go back and find a master, like go to try to find some higher, some power, or some cube or some shit. You know what I mean? And you would watch the mind trying to just, it was like, wait a minute, no, we said that we are the ones in totality, but you keep drifting off. And I had some friends also that I felt like that they were also helping that be that way, because they kept referring to their higher selves as something different than them. And I was like, even logically, for us to keep doing that is making the higher self the very thing that we just tried to get away from, which is having some kind of go-between between us and our power. Now it's this thing called higher self. We have to merge with the higher self. I lost a lot of friends, but I merged with the higher self. And that's where the higher self, it's like, this is not a game of who knows more. And that's what I have a one recording, and it talks about a deep DMT journey where I met what was in the being that was in the fire, which was like a cobra. And this being, it knows everything about the world. Like, it's what they say is the serpent is more smarter than all the other beings. It is the fire. It can be evoked. Because just like you can light a match, as long as you have fuel, it can appear inside of that fuel. And so you would only see this in interface if you was on. I got into what I call the micro breath, which is where you slow your heart rate and your breathing down to what would be like a micron. And so you're going, but super small. And you can do that when you get deep, deep into your consciousness. So I'm doing that. And at that point, the whole reality starts slowing down. And then the flame, you could see so deep into the flame, then you just could see there was a cobra. And then I was looking at this cobra, and again, higher self consciousness is then kind of mentoring you. And the higher self said, basically, watch this, but don't move, don't do anything. And so as this energy was coming through, it immediately was sending this energy off like, you're about to go through this test to see if you really know everything. Like, because this is the point where now we're going to see if you really know everything. Do you really know what's going to happen? You say you know what's going to happen when you're going to die. You say you know this. You say you know that. Now we're about to see. And then my higher self, you still as a mentor is saying, basically, if I articulate it in human words, tell that snake that his wisdom is not the same wisdom as yours. His wisdom is foolishness compared to your wisdom. Basically, that's where the scripture said man's knowledge is foolishness to God. It's like all this wisdom of the world. Don't try to jump in the paint with this thing and try to act like you're going to go into a debate with the great serpent about stuff about the world. He's going to have you serving him after that. Don't even jump in the paint with him. That's what they say in the scripture. Don't talk to the devil, quote unquote, meaning there's no conversation here about wisdom. Your whole wisdom, substance, foolishness. That way you don't even get into the whole thing about like how much you've learned and how much you think you know. And then from that point, I pass on. So I pass on that energy. And then, as I said, all of those spaces, when you pass from that energy, there's no physical object. It's all vibration. It's like if you went into an orgasm, how you would feel if that orgasm was completely balanced. That's what it feels like and looks like in that space. There's no actual physical chairs or anything like that. You're just sitting in that. And so that's what I come to understand is that's what you would be into all the time if you weren't in a body. And the body is basically a governor. It is designed to actually throttle the organs, which actually play off the vibration and the frequency that would allow you to be able to meld with that field. The masters, especially through keeping the knowledge, through written knowledge, which writing is advanced technology because it allows you writing it defeats time and it defeats death. I can write a message to someone that they read 2,000 years later when I'm basically, quote unquote, dead to the physical reality, and they can pick up on my train of thought. And even from that train of thought and the disciplines, that actually allows one to interface as a complete interim, a complete family, what they call a golden circle. Right. This is what the Buddhists, they have a golden circle. So basically, no matter what, they're tethered to each other. So going into the astral plane is like them just going back into the world that they already are creating and staying focused on. Because a lot of this was all about focus. That's why they say, what happened to these Aztec, the Maya, the dream warriors? They said that they needed more time to ultimately accomplish what they needed to accomplish in physicality. So they needed to move over to a dimension where they could actually get that time. They say they designed themselves like the design of what an ant's colony looks like, which now they have even metal versions of. They dumping the molten lava inside the ant colony and showing the whole structure. And then they put themselves into another plane, and that's where they exist. And they can be there because that particular structure is resistant to the time that we have going on in our dimension, because this is about geometry, right? Like, so as I mentioned before, when they put the concept of a circle inside of everybody's mind, that is the world, that is the new world order. And that means that the new world order is a fourth dimensional projection. It is a fourth dimensional plane is not actually a solid plane. It's more like an elevator. It's something that you really manifest and evoke in all that all the time. And that's why our whole reality has so many things in it, like bugs, snakes, people, ideas, radio frequencies, all this stuff is in here because it's like we're on fourth dimension. Before our ancestors were on third dimension, so their whole reality was a torus. So in the Taurus, it was all central to them. It wasn't about the external reality as we know the external reality. They were inside of their mother's womb. They were inside of the Taurus. So they didn't come out into the physical worlds. They stayed in something that was interconnected, like a mothership. You see what I mean? So this is the framework that we're actually talking about. And I realized that, this is just began. That's what they say. Like, I did have an opportunity to one day talk to this, supposed master mason. They come in with all their secrecy, but he doesn't want to say anything. So I asked him one question about, so basically what did he ultimately learn from this, if he could just summarize as a sentence. And he said, son, when we first began, we thought that we were almost complete. We had all of our science. We had all the chemistry. We even had the holy words. But what we discovered was akin to understanding that if you could see how many stars are actually in the sky, that we had only visited a few. And we had that many more stars of experience to go through. So it's a quantitative measure that our experience so far, and that's, of course, their faculties and the faculties in which they're using to interface. Now, we understand their interfacing just so you can understand what's happening. And that's why I said the George Washington black theme is a very interesting road to travel, because it actually solves more problems than it causes. Because it lets us understand why there's such a magical thing going on with this whole United States, and even Mexico, the Mexicans, even Ireland and Scotland and the pyramids that are found there. Like it solves the whole riddle. And it shows even why today, like still, you know, the energy and some of the knowledge coming from out of those spaces seems to be directly melding in with the secret societies, at least at some point in stage. And it's because it's true that there was a craft, meaning an actual magical art that was taught of how to ascend the ladder of lights, how to actually interface with these angelic forces or vibrational frequencies, and what they do and how they operate. And it was set up like a role-playing game on high level, like this came from the sheiks. They say that even the attraction initially of the Europeans was because one of them ended up going into the Orient and was invited into the realm of a sheik during a wedding. And what he witnessed in this whole ceremony and this wedding, from all of even the incense, the magic, the music, the dancing, the clothing, the food. I mean, this was in an ancient time, if you may, what we call ancient time. Europeans in there and seeing, wow, our culture is nothing compared to these cultures. So they asked to be initiated into that culture. And it looks like that over time, they were eventually accepted into that culture. But the foundations of this culture, because we're talking about a culture, is to ultimately unlock the highest levels of spiritual power that can be achieved on the physical plane. That's what the knowledge was. What it turned into was a pyramid scheme where there would be so many different levels that you need to go through, and the beings that were at the top were so corrupted on the power, because we're like electricity. Remember, a lot of this stuff on the physical plane is like electricity. So when too much electricity starts flowing through you, if you hold any of it, it burns your structure. And this burn is not repairable. So it's like you burn a chakra. It's like really like you burn out a motor, and where are you going to get another chakra from? Where are you going, that fits you? So it's very deep and clear that, like, if this was a craft of spirituality, and it still goes on, it goes on in Orthodox Judaism, there's initiation of grades of a genius, as you would call it, which is basically to take instruction from a non-corporeal life form. But as I said before, the best thing that we have now is that we have the future. We're now in the future seeing what all of that wrought. Because all this could sound very entertaining. Like if I'm just a young lad in the village, shit, you talk about 1,101 Arabian Nights, basically. And I basically join up with these guys, and I'm going to be like going into being like Solomon or something. This is like the old school X-Men, to become a wazir and a caliph and a sharif. You see what I mean? And all of those roles are all dealing with spirits. So that means that you had a whole realm that was already deeply acclimated with dealing with spirits. And if you notice how the Chinese, they keep this in the ancient Orient, with the home of the Asiatic black man, they keep that knowledge about understanding that these energies, such as the dragons, such as the fox, can wrap you up in a whole entirely different reality than the one that you're actually in. You be laying somewhere in the forest, sleep several lifetimes in, like Inception, and you be up into a whole nother reality, caught up in another being's dream, basically. Like Rick Ross says, you caught up in my dream, counting cream on the color of a magazine. So what he's saying for real is that all these youngsters are like looking at that and they're caught up in his dream. And you see what I mean? But he ain't dreaming about them. So that's the other thing about, like, okay, so in the ancient times, it also is very clear that there was a natural practice towards continuously treating everybody like a tribe and not having war in the land. Okay, so all the land was peaceful under Dawood, right? And in this particular peacefulness, the reason why it was happening is because when a person came too far out of line, you could see the beings that were responsible for that, was they say was the assassins, the Hashashin. They could see you on the spiritual plane. They can see the energies that were making you even think that. And they will go in on the spiritual plane and deal with those entities to get them off you. And you will have this experience. And then from that experience, you will end up becoming a disciple of Ben Saba, because if you were already bringing in that kind of energy, you needed to actually be put into like a military for spirituality, because your mind was already manifesting warlike energies because you had already died in war. You see what I mean? So this is like, there was just a cohesive field of the metaphysical versus the physical. And then that makes them both complement each other. So you're actually able to undo things in this reality, because you can, this time is so slowed down in here. You can come in here and have a whole experience, life, family, friends, love, hatred, purification, jealousy, fear, and then wipe it all in a 72-year blink of an eye, pretty much, and then come back in on another experience. But if it was like your dream, this would be, because you have an imagination, you have something that was given to you as a gift that taps you into the map to all of the other spaces and the vibrations that you can be in. And your heart leads you into those waters and into those lands when you're not inside of a spider trap, or inside of, when, you know, the tampering of with the mechanics of how these dimensions are actually created is that's when, as your first question, so it's a good place to leave it off, is when someone enters into the holiest of holies also means that someone has been able to crack the code of the DNA and to begin to, like the machine CRISPR does, to begin to rewrite the code. And then when you start rewriting the code, you're trying to reinvent the wheel. So the first mistake you make, because you can't do anything but make mistakes, is you're going to break the wheel. And that's, again, why they show the pentagram that they draw. One of the wheels is kind of smaller than the rest of the pentagram. It's broken. And what this then creates is the whopping of a wheel. Like, it's got entropy. So then they tell you, hey, the reality is tilted. Right? It's bent. And as Finn points out in the Dream Tech, they say, in addition to that, it's bent actually towards the netherworld side. Like, it's not, there could be a bend where everything would kind of be more of like, you know, we would have a great experience, but we still be bent. We're bent in like a more of a subconscious, darker, fear-based mindset, because that new world that was supposed to be a perfect 360-degree sphere became a new world of 365.25, which is how many days they say is in a leap year. So they take a 360-degree perfect circle and add 5 days onto it. That's why they call him Big Five. Big Five is Marduk. It's also what a pyramid really is. It's like, basically, it's like if you, this would then be, let's say, technically a spheroid. Now you put what looks like a diamond in one of the parts of the spheroids. What is it going to do? It's going to start going like what looks like the Armarillion sphere. It's not going to be like a top anymore. It's going to be like an Armarillion sphere. And every cross or concentration point is actually going to create what we call a planet. Because now you have what looks like X's, which is what their latitude and longitude lines, the original ones, correspond to. You have like X's basically cutting through the energetic field. So then the whole body is cut. And this is why they say the body is cut into 7 parts on one dimension and 5 parts on another dimension. So the body is all cut up from the magnetic lines being gone disarray. So that's why they always say, Sean, hey, don't hang up until the end.
Horse to Balance Vibrations, and thank you so much for taking the opportunity to actually look at this video. I wanted to say to you, wow, you really impressed me. You've actually been able to crack through the entire thing and see that there is some truth to what we're actually doing, and you've connected with this mission even to a point where you really wanted to contribute to it financially, and that means a lot these days. I can only say personally, it's been a decade of consistently pushing to get this message to everyone, and it is now exploding into some massive stuff. So you're going to see a lot of stuff coming from us. We already have a lot behind us, and we're just going with Tribe and really creating this connection, and you are a major part of why that's happening. So I just want to say thank you so much, beautiful being. I'll see you soon.